LeanData provides you with many different reporting tools, so it's very easy for you to determine how many records went through a graph, and specifically where they went. And you can do this by using a combination of routing insights, which we're looking at right now, and also our audit logs page to troubleshoot individual records. Now, if we go to the audit logs page, you can search for records by all sorts of different search parameters. But not everybody in your organization has access to the LeanData interface or this routing insights interface, and they may not want to learn how to navigate that if they're already comfortable working with Salesforce reports and dashboards. Or your organization may do all of your reporting in Salesforce, and you want to have data on routing easily accessible in Salesforce reports as well. Now, there's one very easy way that you can start to report on how many records go through a particular branch that you want to track. So for instance, we're looking at the routing insights here on this one graph. We can see the number of records that have gone through the graph and where those records ended up. So for instance, this is just an example. Let's say I want to know which records progressed through this specific juncture in the graph where we found an account match, but we don't find an opportunity match. What we could do is we can come to this page and then actually click on the number here. So if I click on the number 67 and then click on that number 67, that'll take us to an audit logs page that would show us those 67 records. Now from there, we could also export that into a CSV. But for those who don't work in the LeanData interface, then how do we show them? If this is the particular point in the graph that we're interested in, and we want to know how many records went through here and which records went through this particular point, there is a way that you can do that. So what we're going to do is we first need to create a field in Salesforce on the object that we're routing here that can capture that information. So jumping over to Salesforce setup here and the object manager, I'm going to create a field on the lead object. And for this one, let's just make this a date time field. Now, you don't have to make it a date time field, but I think this just provides us a little bit of extra information, which could end up being helpful in some capacity. You could also do a checkbox or a text field. It doesn't really matter, but I'm going to do a date time field for that extra data that we can capture with it. So I'm going ahead to actually label this something along the lines of no op when routing, and this will be the API name as well. So basically, the purpose of this field is to capture if there was no opportunity at the time of lead routing here. So I will go ahead and click next when I'm done with that. And then click next again on this page, and then save this brand new field. And you can configure that access however you want. But I just did that really quickly so we can have a field to show you. Now I'm going to jump over to that particular graph that I was just showing you, except now I'm in the editable version of it. And I'm going to find that exact same spot where I want to track all the records that go through this specific branch in my graph. It doesn't have to be this branch, but I'm just pointing this out as our example. And you could really do the same thing for any branch in this entire graph if you want to track the records that go through that specific juncture. So first I'm going to make a little bit of space, and then I'm going to pull in an action node after I make that space. And specifically, I want an update record node. And I'm going to attach that here. I'll name this stamp lead with time. Label it like that. And I want to update the routed lead. And the Salesforce field I want to update is the one that I just made. So I'll first have to refresh these fields by typing in some random string and then clicking the refresh data button. That's going to pull in any new fields that I've recently created. And then after that, I will go ahead and look for that field that I had created. I think it was something along the lines of no op when routing. Okay, so I'll select that field and then I can enter a value. I can enter any value, but because I specifically chose a date time field, that allows me to insert a relative date. And I'm just going to insert right now. Cool. So for my advanced settings, I want to make sure that I connect the next node to the next node in my graph here. Great. So now all lead records that come through this path, if they don't find an opportunity match, they will get stamped on that new field that I created with that specific date time when it passes through here. So this field will be populated for all records that pass through this specific juncture in your graph. So now, whenever I want to run a Salesforce report and grab all the records that went through this point in the graph, I simply need to filter for the records that have a field stamped with a date time here. And I also have the benefit of knowing exactly when these records went through. So if I want to do some additional filtering based on some time frame, I can also do that. So this was just a quick example of how you can level up your reporting if you want to report on specific branches in your graph. And you can add that to any point in your graph and just using a similar concept there. I hope that helps.